I was about to head out and get another load of wood, but I thought, well, I'll do a video and I can upload it when I'm gone. Maybe. There's a lot of stuff I could talk about. There's a lot going on. Some pretty freakish stuff, but we'll start off with Elon Musk. You know, when he was going to quit doing that Starlink thing for Ukraine, then all of a sudden he found he was on their kill list. And what gets me is that, you know, this has been going on for years, this whole kill list thing. And when he was kind of on the outs, all of a sudden they put him on here, and he was amazed. He had no idea there was such a thing. Now, if you're going to be supporting that pack of Nazis, you would think you would look into it a little bit before you get involved. But evidently he didn't. I mean, this surprised him. In fact, so much so that, you know, he was trying to get the U.S. military to cover the cost of it. And after he got on the kill list, then he said, well, okay, I'll keep covering it. So evidently they put a little fear into him. Or probably the State Department got on his case. And I think they also got on Ukrainians and told them to remove his name. It doesn't mean it's off him. It means his name has just been removed from the kill list. But they still got a grudge against him. So, you don't know. But I think they kind of scared him. He's not used to people threatening him like that. I mean, he thinks he's the good guy, and all of a sudden, you got people coming after you. But, you know, if you're going to get involved, I mean, because he has to expect some responsibility when they're using his system to target, in particular, civilian targets. You've got some lives on your hand there, some deaths on your hand. Anyway, what I was going to really talk about was, there was, you know, it was about a month ago, they had dispersed, you know, the Russians had a bunch of subs in the Black Sea. A lot of ships in there because they were actually kind of blockading Odessa. Well, after they made that grain deal, which was a boondoggle, they decided they would disperse their subs, so they moved a lot of them out of there. And we like to pretend like we know where they are at all times, but we don't. We just pretend. Anyway, well, first let's say about this grain deal. Yeah, it turned out that you know, the grain was supposed to go to all these poor countries in Africa. It went right to Europe. I think like 3% of the grain ended up going to the countries that actually needed it. That was the whole reason behind this deal. But nonetheless, the Russians say that, you know, they've got a surplus of grain this year. Has been a bumper crop, so they're going to cover it for these countries that got shortchanged on this Ukrainian deal. Well, like I say, they dispersed the subs out of there. And that was like a month ago. Now, a couple of weeks ago, all of a sudden, a Russian sub pops up to the surface right off the coast of France. But it was in international waters. But it just freaked the French out. It was shortly after that where you heard the French saying, "We will not use nuclear weapons in retaliation," you know. They were saying, we're staying out of this. But, okay, so this sub pops up, freaking them out. They had no idea it was there. And there's hundreds or thousands of cables running between France and England. So, they could take them out anytime they wanted. But you see that all the time. We think we know where they are. But you'll notice, like off our East Coast, we're constantly out there with sub hunters trying to find, and they're there. That's a logical place for them to be. But we're trying to get a handle on them. But we really don't know. If you watch on the flight tracking, you'll see sometimes they're just pounding an area. They think there might be something there, and they're just looking. But when this older diesel electric sub turned up off the coast there of France, the first reaction, people were saying, sink it. Well, you can't, it's in international waters. They have every right to be there. You got nothing. It would be a foolish move to do, to make any attempt at it. But it reminds me of something that had happened in the height of the Cold War. We had a task force of ships out the Atlantic going past the Sargasso Sea in that area. And they picked up a Russian sub that was evidently trailing them. They do that all the time. People watch. There was actually 5 Russian subs there, but they picked up on one of them. So in some bizarre turn of events, they decided to drop what they referred to as non-lethal depth charges on it to try to get it to surface. I don't know what a non-lethal depth charge is because, any depth charge could easily do damage. But so they actually attacked this sub with no provocation at all. There was no reason for it, no justification for it, but they did it. Trying to get it to surface. It's just a games thing they play. So, the Russian sub decides to come up to the surface. But before they do, they figure they're under attack. They don't know what went on. Their communications are out. They think, okay, something happened. We got World War III going. So before they come to the surface, they arm a 10 megaton nuclear torpedo or a missile. They know there's this whole task force up above them. They surface. Their idea is, okay, if we're going to go, we're going to take them all with us. So they come to the surface and immediately they get fired on by what turns out to be illumination flares, but they thought they were under attack on the surface. So they're going to crash dive. Well, it turns out it was illumination flares. The U.S. ships were trying to get a better picture of the sub. So they were trying to light the area up. But from the Russian perspective, they'd already been depth charged, and now they're having these whatever fired at them. So they're going to crash dive. They're seconds away from firing off this 10 megaton nuke that would wipe out this whole task force. And as they're going to go into the sub, go down to do the crash dive, the captain of the sub happens to turn around and look over his shoulder and see that one of the American ships is using their signal light and flashing an apology for the depth charging. Well, it's a strange thing, but you know, the political officer and one of the other big shots on the ship, they still wanted to go ahead and just detonate the nuke. But he vetoed it, and they didn't. But it was that close. You know, people always talk about the Cuban Missile Crisis. I tell you, this was a lot closer. But that's what happens when you play around with that nonsense, and they can't help themselves. It was freaky the other day because that would have escalated rapidly. I mean, if the Russians would have blown that whole task force up, we, of course, would have retaliated, and it would have just got out of hand, all out of hand. You know, things were on touchy ground as it was, and then that happened. Well, now I hear today that a lot of countries that are actually kind of pro-Russian are telling anybody, any of their citizens that are in Ukraine to get the hell out because something's going to happen. They're issuing warnings saying, no fooling around, get out of Ukraine. It made me think, you know, Zelensky's been wanting this nuke first strike in Ukraine. And I heard a thing, which was just a rumor. I saw it a couple times mentioned, that there was, you know, they've got nuke sniffers at borders commonly to catch if something is being transported through, some explosive. And something set off alarms at the border. You know, something was being shipped from the UK, and it set off alarms at the border in Germany, and again at the border with Poland. Something was being moved through. And the likelihood is a tactical nuke. But like I say, I don't know. But it would not surprise me. It's the direction that they're going. I mean, they're accusing of Russia of going to do this. But it's the same old projection that they always do. When they're thinking about doing something, they accuse Russia of doing it. So it's not an impossibility. And why all of a sudden all these countries are saying, get the hell out of Ukraine? You know, something's going to happen. It's worrisome. You know, like when Elon Musk, when he was doing that, you know, he came out with his peace plan, which is what really pissed the Ukrainians off. I mean, it was nothing more than the same as what the Minsk Accords were. You know, it was the same deal, except that he wanted UN people watching the vote in these provinces that had broken away from Ukraine. And Ukraine just flipped out on him, you know, and really told him off, you know, which is why he was going to pull Starlink, which is why he got on the hit list. But his idea, you know, to have these UN inspectors there or watching the polls, complete nonsense. You know, I don't know if he understands what had went on there before, but in this vote that they had, there was something like 100 people there from various countries independently observing this vote and found no problems whatsoever with it, though a lot of these people that were observing this caught a lot of hell I mean, they're all on the kill list, but a lot of them lost jobs and stuff because they didn't go along with this nonsense where we were trying to say, oh, they were making them vote at gunpoint and all this. That was all just bullshit. But it's what we do. You know, it's a funny thing. You know, this the whole peace plan that he had, it's not workable. Nothing can happen there until, you know, eventually. I mean, maybe Ukraine will be something again. Maybe they can actually have a vote again. I'm sure there are Ukrainians there, but deep undercover, that would like to to be what they used to be before we overthrew the government. But you know, all the opposing political parties have been banned. All the politicians have either been killed or thrown in prison. So it's hard for anybody to speak out uh, in this great democracy. But they're there. I can assure you, they are there. And if they can ever get rid of these Nazis, maybe they'll have a chance for some kind of a country again. But I got the feeling it's going to be a lot smaller because Poland is really chomping at getting the whole west side. So they're going to lose that. So anyway, the expectation is, you know, 2 weeks to a month, shit is really going to hit the fan there. But the idea of this escalating nuclear, very possible. You know, it's, you know, if they could do this, you know, because here, you know, with the midterms coming, these people are getting desperate. If they can do something, you know, pull some rabbit out of a hat, even if they have to, you know, go nuke on it, they will. They got no other options in this thing. Yeah, I better cut wood. I've talked enough. I do. I should mention though that the one day I got a notification from YouTube's community guidelines again. I thought, oh shit, now what? You know. Well, here they had dug back, found a video that I did on plant density in industrial hemp. Well, you can actually go on the Department of Agriculture website and find this stuff. You know, this is not some great mystery, and it's funny coming from an organization that is really pushing to legalize marijuana, and it is legal in a lot of places. In fact, the growing of hemp is legal in a lot of places. It's actually legal here. You can buy permits, but the problem is the federal aspect of it is still up in the air. But you would think for a party that's pushing a green agenda, there ain't nothing greener than industrial hemp. I mean, fuel and fiber and paper, and it's an endless list of stuff. But they gave me a warning on that video and an age restriction, which the video could just as well be taken down once they, you know, because then it would never be recommended if there's an age restriction. That's just a backdoor way of getting rid of the video. But at least I didn't get a strike on it, just got a warning. They're funny people to deal with, though. You know, maybe eventually we can get them straightened out, but I don't know. You know, they're really getting happy with their strikes and stuff. But it's got to catch up to them. I mean, evil like that can't go on forever. I mean, it's, well, the same with like in the Nazis in Ukraine. That can't go on forever. It's not, a country is not able to survive that kind of, I mean, we prop them up. If they were on their own, they'd be screwed. But we keep them Nazis going. I thought it was a funny thing. The one day I happened to see a video. it was, they don't allow journalists to actually be in Ukraine and actually show what's going on. Not on the Ukrainian side. But there was a German in there. And they were doing an interview with some guy. But what I thought was funny was as they're talking, they always claim, oh, they're not Nazis. But in the background, here drives by some kind of a tracked vehicle with a big swastika on the side, painted on. And I'm sure this had to be something out of Poland or out of Germany. And the first thing they do is paint a swastika on it. And the funny part is, when they have a hell of a time. Anything that they turn loose through the Ukrainian censors, they try to weed that stuff out. The stuff that's actually going on. They try to cover that up. A lot of times stuff will come out and then later it'll be pulled down, it'll come up again, but it'll be photoshopped out. They do that all the time because, God, you can't let the truth be shown. That's a funny place. I don't know what the hell we think we're accomplishing there, because we're not accomplishing anything. Unless the whole theory was to actually just decimate the Nazi party in Ukraine. We're accomplishing that. Because we do intend to keep at it until the last Nazi or the last Ukrainian is dead. Because even now Poland is getting a little concerned. They got almost as many Ukrainians in Poland as they do Poles. And it's funny too. I read that when they had first, when these Ukrainian refugees were being moved like into England, they had contracts with people that they would house them for so long, Well, these contracts are up. And these people who have been housing these Ukrainians for a fee, there was a fee that you got for doing this, but they have decided that this is not worth the money. Ukrainians are not good house guests. So these people want out of this deal. There's no way they're re-upping it. They want to just take your damn Ukrainians back. So now the intention is actually to start housing Ukrainians on old military bases. Well, that's going to be a mess. So funny thing too, I don't, YouTube is weird, but they're trying to make money, so they do strange things. And I keep getting in my video feed, there's a lot of stuff that comes up that I am not subscribed to, that I have actually requested not to get videos from them because they're complete bullshit. It's all propaganda. But they still keep pushing them. You can't get rid of them. But in this, all the time comes up this, it's like they're pimping Ukrainian women. It's not a video, it's an ad. You can order yourself a Ukrainian woman. It's funny. And it says, oh, they're faithful, and they always got these like supermodels in the ad, and I'm thinking, yeah, they'll cut your throat in the middle of the night. Funny thing too, the whole thing going on with Turkey now, Turkey and Russia, Turkey's NATO. Turkey is actually sitting on U.S. nukes. But Turkey and Russia are going together on a Turk stream, another Turk stream or two, to run gas into Europe without going through that other mess. Go further down south. Though somebody did try to take that Turk stream pipeline out the other day. So they'll have to watch it. But one of the things thought was funny, because though Turkey is NATO, in fact, the reason, the whole reason for the Cuban Missile Crisis was because we put nukes in Turkey. So the Soviet Union put nukes in Cuba. But we triggered that. We started that. We always start this crap. But that's what it was. But them nukes are still in Turkey. But the Turks are about fed up with NATO. They see where this is going. And I thought it was funny that Turkey has now banned the broadcast of Voice of America. Now, if you have ever listened to Voice of America, that is absolutely pure propaganda. That and Radio Free Europe. It's just another arm of Voice of America. But if you listen to them, they're not for domestic consumption here. They're meant for over there. But if you listen to them, then you know what real propaganda is. But anyway, the Turks have had enough of it, and they just shut it down. They said, we can't have that going on. The closest thing we have domestically to that is NPR. NPR has become nothing but a propaganda wing. It's a damn shame. It used to be a good network, but there again, we're paying for it. We're paying for Radio Free Europe, we're paying for Voice of America, and we're paying for NPR. And they are working against our best interest, always. Then I'm going to cut wood. I got the Grizzly operating. But I'll maybe go into that someday and explain what I had to do to repair that. But it works great now. So that's what I'm using. And that's what I will go do. I'm surprised this camera's still running.